welcome back to my kitchen. Again, I'm Claudia, also known as La Chata from La Chata Always Hungry. Today it is raining in San Francisco, so we need something to really warm us up this weekend. A nice soup that'll just get better and better as the days go on. So one of my favorite soups actually to eat of all time that my mom makes is albondigas. Tonight I'm going to be making my version of it. Different from the recipes you're gonna find online, but it's how we ate it growing up, and it's so warm and comforting. So I'm really excited to share this with you all. Albondigas it's a meatball. That's what it is in Spanish. And often the recipes you're gonna find, even for Mexican recipes, they're gonna have the tomato, a heavier tomato sauce or tomato broth. To make a quick chicken broth, if I just to do some chicken, make sure it has bones. Bones add a lot of flavor. Onion and garlic, and that's how I start my chicken soups. So I have that just warm in the back. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna add 2 of these tomatoes. They're actually pretty small and very red, which I love, from Imperfect Foods. I'm gonna add them to this pot that I have back here. It's just a pot of hot water. It has been boiling. I turned it down. And I'm going to only leave that in there for a couple minutes. And what the heat's going to do is help that tomato skin peel off pretty quickly. Okay, so I have my oil heating up right here. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start with some onions. For this soup, you don't want everything to be too fine. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You want it to be very large chop on those. This is half of a medium onion. All right, throw those bad boys in. And I'm gonna saute the onions, then the carrots and celery, and I'm gonna let them sweat just a little bit, and then I'll add the spices to get that flavor to start to come out before I add in the broth. I really like the taste of epazote, especially if you make vegetarian versions of things. A lot of my vegetarian tacos, especially mushrooms, I use a lot of epazote with them, even butternut squash. It just brings that kind of minty, earthy flavor. So a lot of these recipes you're gonna see, they'll add some cilantro, some mint, oregano, and I feel like epazote actually helps combine all of those. It's very, but yeah, so my herbs that I have today are gonna be dried. What dried means is that, sure, fresh is always the best, but it also means that because they're dried, the flavor is more intense typically. If you've had your spices for a long time, say over 6 months to a year, you're gonna need a little more spices. They definitely have probably oxidized a little bit. They've gotten a lot of, so that's garlic, onion, celery, and carrot. I'm not trying to work these down too soft. I'm just trying to get them to start loosening up some of their sugar, some of their flavor, and then we'll add the broth, and that way the broth will really take in the flavor. I like little pieces of tomato versus a tomato broth. To me, it's just home. If you prefer a tomato broth, go ahead and take the onion, tomato, and garlic with some water and blend that up. So it's this is about 2.5 Roma tomatoes, probably do 3. Water, and then when you saute your vegetables, you can add that in there, and that's another way to do it. And I'm gonna let these sit for a little bit and kind of cool off before I can handle them. And I'm gonna let this stay hot because I'm trying to rework how I have things cooking in order to show you how to make meatballs and start simmering them. So I just added, so I would say it was about 1 full teaspoon to 1.5 teaspoons of oregano, dried oregano, and epazote. You don't have to add both. You do need to add oregano to it. Fresh is great. Again, if it's about 1 teaspoon, that's lovely. But epazote, if you can't find it, don't worry about it. Again, it's what's comforting to you, and all the flavors are gonna meld together, and they're gonna be delicious and wonderful. So just let it do its thing. I don't know if you can see, but it's cooking down nicely. The tomatoes and everything are getting nice and soft. Can you see? I can start smelling the herbs. No, a little more. That's fine. All right. So now I'm going to go ahead and add this broth that's been sitting there getting warm. So I'm going to season pretty heavily. And then I'm gonna let that just do its thing. And get nice and happy. My broth, so albondigas, again, they're meatballs. And often meatballs will have like a soaked bread in them, but albondigas are actually gonna have white rice. Pick your meat. You can do all beef, you can do all pork. If you're gonna do a poultry, I would cut it with something with a little more fat because ground turkey tends to dry out a little bit faster if you've ever had a turkey meatball. And then the Beyond Meats, they'll have meatballs already or they'll have their own ground meat. Again, if you actually want to make this all vegan, don't do chicken broth. Make a beautiful vegetable broth. So in here, I have half a pound of turkey and half a pound of pork. My soup in total is going to have 2 pounds of meat in it. I already started with 1 pound. So to this, I'm adding, this is a quarter of an onion, quarter of a medium onion, finely diced tomatoes. So let me show you how easily these tomatoes peel. Look at that. The whole skin of the tomato is off. Bang. You don't need a ton of rice. You only need about just shy of a quarter cup of rice for a pound. That's all you need. It's just gonna help soak in some of that liquid and balance it out, just like breadcrumbs helps to bind it, same thing. It'll be a similar trick. So I'm gonna go ahead and mix this. Again, what you're gonna wanna do, you can do this with a fork, you can definitely do this gloved, but you wanna not push with your palm down. You want to gently fold it in, which is just bringing it over. I poked a little bit of holes in there, just letting things kind of slowly get happy together. Because you don't want to overwork the meat and have it become tough and chewy. You want it to stay super happy, light. Like what? If you can freshly grind this, amazing. Okay, 1 egg. 1 egg per pound is about right. If it's not coming together, then you can add a little bit more. But about 1 egg is fine. Forgot to add black pepper. Turn that down. That is now boiling. I'm turning it down to medium-low. Now that that's doing that, I'm going to go ahead and add some potatoes. Potatoes take a while to cook. And I don't want my potato, I don't want it to be super broken down. But I want them to be nice and soft so I can eat. Add a little bit more. Those potatoes that I had pre-cut were just sitting in cold water. And that just helps them from browning. And you can add any vegetables you have in your fridge. If you have vegetables that they need to get used, add them to a soup. It's a really great way to cook them. There we go. Pepper, egg. I'm gonna crack my yolk with my fingers. And again, fold it up. Go ahead and shape these. The easiest way, if you want them to be uniform, is to go ahead and use an ice cream scoop. You can soak it in some water to help it come off, or slide off and mix. You're gonna know that these are done because once you put them into the simmering water, they'll float, and then you'll know the meat's cooked through, and then you're gonna want them to sit just a little bit longer because you want that rice to cook. So, all right, so I'm gonna let those sit. It's okay for them to sit at room temperature for now because they are gonna go into a hot liquid. And so what I'm gonna do now is transfer these. So you can see how these are floating up here right now. And then when I add these, I'll show you what they look like in here. Down. I'm gonna save this broth over here because it's a really great way when this soaks up more of the liquid. I can add this. It's already got the flavor of the meatballs. It'll only help to add flavor to my soup. So that. So I went to Trader Joe's and I thought they would have regular size squash and they didn't yet. So I got these little squash right here. Comes in a bag. I actually used to use these a lot for salads and I would roast them whole and it's super good. It's also really great as crudité. I'm just gonna do some thick rounds of this, and then I'll add that to the soup. When if I was putting in the meatballs raw into this broth, I would just wait until the meatballs had already been cooking about 30 minutes, and then add the softer vegetables. But because these meatballs have already been cooking for about 30 minutes, I can go ahead and add them whenever I'm ready, and that's the beauty of television, because I'm trying to speed up the way I work. So I'm going to go ahead and gently add in my meatballs. And I'm just going to add them little by little in different pockets of the bowl. Oh my god, it already smells so good, guys. I'm just turning those over. Cool. And that, they've already started to get their skin. You can see they're sunken down like that. And then you saw what I had earlier. They come up. So right now they're all down. They're starting to get their skin. Yeah. Wow. God, I love this soup so much. And so that means they're definitely done cooking. The protein's done cooking. I'm just going to keep letting the rice go. At the point of just adding vegetables. Throw that in. Okay. So there we go. I'm going to taste the soup. Oh, yeah. Zucchini is going to take a few more minutes to cook. So simple, so good. Actually, I'm just gonna keep letting it simmer and get happy. But once those meatballs start to really cook in there, and then I add this batch, the flavor is just gonna be so much better and so much more comforting. And I'm just gonna serve it again with a little bit of salsa, some lime, some avocado, whatever. So I'm going to go ahead and serve this up in a bowl so you see what it looks like with all the vegetables. And then we're good to go. See, it's that simple. Most of your time is actually waiting for this to cook and get happy. And it's not stressful. You could put this in a crock pot and make it that way at the start of your day. Whatever you'd like to do, it's really a convenient soup. It's really flavorful. If you wanted to, instead of chopping up the tomatoes and putting them in there, if you want to blend it up, it's your choice. But if you want to make some rice and add some rice to your bowl, a lot of people do that as well. It's a really great. If I'm going to cut my limes for soup, the tip. So I cut it nipple, nipple, half, wedge. There's no other way to say it but nipple.
Or
all right.
End.
Huh?
The end of the lime.
I like nipple better. This is the tomatillo and morita salsa. Chile morita, it's very simple. Tomatillos and dried chilies. I always say this, your soup is going to taste so much better the next day. It really, once it cools down, the flavors start to develop just like your salsa, and then the next day it's only going to taste better. And it's a real celebration of comfort, of hominess. It's not terribly unhealthy. It's actually very healthy, I think. And it's just a lovely way to enjoy this cold weather and sit at home with your family. Wow. So good. So simple. Go home and make some soup this weekend. Sorry, I won't talk with my mouth full of food. Make some soup this weekend and really enjoy it. Share it with your family. So, thank you for joining me in the kitchen. Cheers, everybody.